So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, recorded live on blogtalkradio.com on May 22nd, 2008. Losing a family member at the tender age of 33 is incredibly tough. It's even more complicated when that young person lived his existence in a bigger-than-life way, like Chris Farley, and his trials and tribulations are witnessed by millions. In his new book, The Chris Farley Show, Chris's older brother, Tom Farley Jr., with help from co-author Tanner Colby, pieces together his late brother's life in the form of an oral history, with interviews from most everyone who encountered Chris. This includes family and friends from his youth, on through the Saturday Night Live family, and people from his hit movies, including Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, and Beverly Hills Ninja. The book is an easy, breezy read and was excerpted last month in Playboy. Here's what original SNL cast member Chevy Chase told the authors about his last encounter with Farley, and I'm reading right from the book here. I read him the riot act that weekend. Everybody did. Chris was drunk and stoned, and on top of that, way overweight. I sat with him and I said, look, you're not John Belushi. And when you overdose or kill yourself, you will not have the same acclaim that John did. You don't have the record of accomplishment that he had. You don't have the background that he had. And you don't have the same cultural status that he had. You haven't had that chance to get that far. And you're already screwing yourself up. He kept saying, I'm just trying to level out. That's what he said he was doing with the drinking and the cocaine. It's so silly. It means if you took nothing, you'd be level already. Why take all this shit that's killing you? And I told him that. I said, I've experienced this. I've seen who dies. I've seen how far you think you can go, what you can take, and what you can't. You're just going to end up being an overweight guy who could fall on his stomach and had one or two funny things in his career, but nothing that's ever really stood out. You'd be a blip in the New York Times obituaries page, and that'll be it. Is that what you want? It's quite an interesting read, and I'd now like to welcome Tom Farley to the Mr. Media Show. Tom, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you? Good to be here.
Great to have you. I appreciate your time. I think we all know Chris and his work, and look forward to talking to you about it.
Yeah, me too.
Tom, I'm thinking that it must have been quite a strange experience for you and Tanner, mostly for you, but to open the door to Chris's past.
Well, yeah, it's boy, it's so divergent from how we grew up in this kind of typical Irish family where a lot of laughter and that, but not real deep, any of those kind of deep emotions, particularly sad and painful ones, we preferred to just bury with with laughter. And so we weren't really trained growing up about talking about these kind of things in an open, kind of honest way. And so this was definitely a departure from that.
And did you learn a lot about your brother that you didn't already know? Not particularly too much. The struggle. It was nice. It was great to see that people experienced Chris the same way that we all did. Chris was kind of an open book, and it was nice to see that people got him. Understood him, of his good friends, and they were all going through the same kind of roller coaster that we went through, and the same range of emotions. I did find, amazing some of the depth of the kindness and his deep faith, and I always knew that was very strong, and I knew there was plenty of examples of those things, but when you see that, other people saw that and just how deep it really went and how consistent and like daily, it was for him, everything from going to church every day to, just helping out, people in need. It was, that was incredible to me. I just had no idea it was really that deep. Where was the disconnect, do you think, or was there a disconnect between Chris, who was, very religious, as you said, went to church every day, took that very seriously, and yet was very wild. I mean, the things that he was actually doing, there was a thing at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of the book, I think, where he's out with some friends, and he before they go and do something, they say the rosary and Hail Mary, and then he puts the rosary in the glove compartment and say, well, it's up to God now. I
know, beautiful story.
Yeah.
Chris had a very, almost childlike view of his religion. You learn very early on in the Catholic faith about reconciliation and forgiveness and Chris really he didn't really go much farther in depth than that. He knew that he was he was a sinner and born so. And he just had to ask for forgiveness, and he would be okay. And he almost had it like he had preordained to be a sinner. So why fool with that? As long as you understand that you can get, if you say you're sorry, you're okay, and which is not really the point. But that's the way he took it, certainly, and not to manipulate it. I mean, he honestly, really believed in that. So. I guess, he could have, probably helped to be a little bit more philosophical about things, but, he just, that was his thing. He was just, I knew I'm going to sin, and if I can't help that, I'll just make sure that I'm very penitent about it. So, that was kind of the way he approached life.
I asked you a moment ago if you learned much, about your brother, Chris, that you didn't know. Did you learn much in the research that you didn't want to know?
No, not really. Because I have been speaking, for the last 10 years, running the Chris Farley Foundation and going out to schools. I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but. Talking to kids, teenagers, and really good fans of Chris, and talking about substance abuse, I learned very quickly that this is an audience that really demands honesty and openness and frankness, and they'll ferret out a half-truth, quicker than the CIA. So I've gotten very used to talking very openly about Chris's struggles, and so I've kind of heard a lot of it. Like the real details of what my brother Johnny went through, finding Chris in his apartment, that was painful. Johnny, even in the course of interviewing him and writing this book, Johnny made sure it's like, hey, he said, Tommy, thank you for making me go through all of this one more time.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much that that kind of stuff that really was any sort of painful or didn't want to know. But I did find it interesting. You mentioned the Chevy Chase quote, and I do find, knowing Chris, really, really well, and knowing some of the circumstances, I found it interesting how, people 10 years later either, want to remember the things they want to remember, and they like Chevy, I'm sure he wanted to say that he said that, or he certainly wanted to be able to think that he said that at the time, but in reality it's probably not. We had to take his quote as it is, but
right.
It's really probably not. I do remember him actually causing more problems at that event than good, talking to Chris.
Wow.
Stuff. I remember Chris going to him and saying, my managers are really down on me and telling me to straighten up. And Chevy goes, what are you talking about? They work for you. You tell them what to do. And my brothers Johnny and Kevin are there going, oh no. That's all Chris needed to hear.
Oh man. So yeah, it's interesting because it's two very different. I was very surprised to even see Chevy in the book because I didn't know Chris. I don't know Chevy, but it seems like there couldn't be two more different people in that. You got the sense that a lot of what you saw with Chris on screen on TV was Chris, and with Chevy, it seems like the character of Chevy is far different from the individual. Much more sullen, much more inward and stuff involved. So I thought it was interesting. Yeah, but of course it's his quote that stands out. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I guess, and again, it's not so much Chevy Chase saying that to Chris. It's really the voice of a lot of people saying little bits of that at that time, and that's really the important thing. I mean, people were saying that to Chris, no question about it, and he wasn't really listening, and that was really the point of that part of the book.
Tell me about before we're going further and talk about Chris. Tell me about the construction of the book and who did the interviewing. Was it you have as your partner on this was Tanner Colby, who had written Belushi biography, I think, with Judy Belushi, and so I'm kind of interested in how the work of actually putting the book together was done.
Yeah, well, Tanner was just finishing that book up when he called me and introduced himself. He said described his book and I had always wanted to do something on Chris, and he was saying, well, I'm doing this with Judy, and I knew how over the years Judy was very protective of John's legacy. And so I know that for Tanner to be able to work with Judy, that was an endorsement right there. I also have known, having met a few times Jim Belushi, how difficult he is. So I figured, Tanner, if he can do it, Tanner's got some tough skin there too. So that was an endorsement. So I met with Tanner and saw right away that. Had this. Not only was he a good writer and very funny, had a good. Some of the stuff from National Lampoon was very good too. But he was also had this young, honest face with a just very appealing, Southern. He's from New Orleans. Nice Southern accent. So a great face to go out and interview people, and very intelligent, great listener. And so we kind of, I said I was on board right away. I really liked what they did with Belushi and how they did it. And so we went about. Tanner did a lot of the interviewing. He interviewed me first, and that experience was, all I needed. He was really good. And my job really was I interviewed some people around here. Our friends and my family members, but my job was really to go out ahead of Tanner and kind of pave the way with these people and say, we're behind this. Please talk to Tanner, and most importantly, I wanted to give them the message that we wanted, open, honesty. Let it out there, and I assured them that my job was to, not to dredge up anything or put anything in the book that wasn't unnecessary or didn't need to dig up all the dirt if we did find any, but just tell the story. And so people really liked that because they weren't interested, and nor was I, in telling just kind of a glossed over. Chris was just this great funny guy, and what too bad, and he had some issues. They wanted the whole story. They wanted to tell their story. So did I, and so kind of that was the approach that we took, and we wanted to get it from. Chris was such an open guy, and he, to everyone, he kind of laid it out, and you'll see that, whether it's growing up, the college years, early career years, or later on. You see the same Chris Farley, the same character every single time, and so that's why we kind of broke it up into the three areas.
I noticed that actually in looking through the pictures of Chris through the years, how that face just it grows up, but it's the same face from when he's a baby, when he was in elementary or high school. I mean, you look at that and you go, oh, that's Chris Farley. It's not like you're going to look at it and go, I don't know, that doesn't look like. Oh yeah, that's Chris.
No question. It's hysterical. Yeah.
I was going to say, I imagine that it was easier for you and the family to have Tanner be the guy doing most of the interviews with people that knew Chris professionally, because people would probably feel more comfortable telling him stories that maybe they wouldn't quite. They might feel a little awkward. Yeah. Yeah.
No question about that. That was very helpful too. Even though, as I said, to most of these guys, I said, you know what? As bad as experiences you had, we had them too. We had them too. Everyone shared. No one had it worse or better than anyone else. So.
Well, let me give out our phone number, because maybe some people would like to call and talk to you. Maybe they just want to say hello. Maybe they want to ask you a question about Chris. The number is 646-595-3135. That's if you're listening to us live today. It is Thursday, May 22nd. If you're listening to us live, we'd love to have you call in. There's also the web chat going on live accompanying the interview. You can actually see old Mr. Media. I'm waving now. There's live video of me, and you're welcome to join us on that as well. So let's talk a little bit about Chris. Tell me what he was like as a young man before he got his break on SNL.
Well, to talk about Chris, you got to kind of bring me into the picture and talk about me as the older brother. We have a sister. There were 5 of us. Barb was the oldest, and then 4 straight boys. So myself as the oldest boy, and then Chris and Kevin and Johnny. And so my role was the uptight older brother that did everything Dad said to try and stay in line. And so Chris, next to the middle child, if you will, always kind of effortlessly tiptoeing over that line and gaining friends and laughter and everything else and doing it. So growing up, gosh, I was like, we were so close. We did it. We loved to laugh together, but same time. We had our disagreements. We were just 2 different kind of people. Take away the humor, and Chris and I were 2 different people. So it was just kind of a, as I said, I sometimes he would just have me in stitches, and vice versa, and sometimes it would just be a pain. Like when I was a senior in high school, and he was a sophomore. It was just always, just fear. I'd be talking to a girl, and all of a sudden around the corner in the hallway, there comes, JoJo the clown boy, and like, he never failed, to say something, just to get me, just to get me going. Tommy, you went to bed again last night. Mom's really, wants you to go home. So she's done. It's like, oh man. It's just, or like, even before when we were kids, my grandmother would, you see that, that great picture in the book of all of us in our red sweaters. Right. My grandma would just go, buy, carte blanche, just the whole, one color for everyone. And, I would get dressed, put on that red sweater, a pair of khakis, and go upstairs. And a few minutes later, Chris and I shared a bedroom. So a few minutes later, Chris would come up, wearing the exact same thing, same sweater. And I was like, dude, go, change it. You can't do that. You can't come to the same, it's like, no, I'm not going to change. It's like, I'd have to go back down and change because I knew he wouldn't. And he was just, he would just, love doing that stuff to me.
Was he a smart kid, Tom?
I never gave him credit for that. He always got, he always got. I never knew him. I never remember him to having trouble in school, and I certainly never. He sailed right through, whereas a lot of the rest of us had trouble with one grade or another. And Chris was just, I don't know if it was just the teachers just like, okay, and, on to the next. Because who would want to retain him? So, but so I never remember him doing particularly poorly, and he did get into Marquette, which is a fine school and college. But when I saw him mature as an actor, and when he started talking about some of the directors he wanted to work with, and his craft and negotiating deals, I just kind of looked at him and was like, wow, how do you? Who's telling you all this? So it was.
Who are we talking about here? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he was. Yeah, I never gave him credit for it, but he was a smart kid, no question.
There's a story. Maybe you can retell. I'm sure you can retell it better than I. About him in. I want to say. I'm thinking it was in high school, where he gets sent home, and your dad has to come into the school because of something he said to the teacher. Can you tell that story better than I?
There's many of those of that genre. I think the one you're talking about is when he was in grade school, in Catholic grade school, and he went into his classroom and he asked the teacher, where do I sit down? And everyone cracked up, everyone in the classroom, and she, blew the lid, and he said, "What? What do you mean? I said, "Where do I sit down? What's wrong with that?" Dad comes in, have this whole conference, and it was he said, she said, and he said, "Dad, I didn't do that. I'm sorry. It sounded that way," and she couldn't prove it. So, and Dad wasn't backing her up; he was backing Chris up, and so they dropped it. And driving home after the conference, Dad just kind of looks at Chris and says, You said that, didn't you? He goes, "Yeah, I did." Because I knew it, but it's like, it was so, it was such a minor thing, for Dad to be brought in to the teacher to talk about, so Dad just didn't have time for that kind of nonsense. So he would let that slide. I mean, and that was kind of, that was kind of drilled into Chris and us that. If you really truly care and have a good heart and do and care about people and aren't malicious with your humor and cruel, a little funny stuff here and there isn't harmful, and so why we weren't punished for that kind of stuff.
Well, we read in the book that your dad loved to laugh and had a great sense of humor. Did Chris have a different relationship with your dad than you and your brothers and your sister did?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's and again, it was kind of like there were. I don't know what it was, but it's Chris just. My dad kind of understood him, and. Maybe because Dad had, older brothers that were very, serious, and Dad was just was always this kind of, fun kid, and growing up, so I'm told, and it's like, Chris would go like, I want to go play hockey, I want to be on the hockey team, and next thing you know, he'd just be outfitted like head to toe. In like, in a full uniform, the full thing, the full gear, and I want to play, football, and he'd get the whole stuff, and Dad would just like make sure that, he was had everything, he was really encouraged, I guess, he probably didn't think, Chris had it in him either. Who knows? But he just wanted to make sure that Chris had every opportunity to shine, to shine, and not for nothing, look where he went with it. I mean, so you can't say Dad was wrong there. But they had it very special, yeah.
Yeah. So, where were you? Do you remember where you were, or how you learned that Chris had gotten the gig on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I remember distinctly when he got asked to be on the main stage of Second City in Chicago when his career really started. It was my wedding, and he was my best man, and that was a frightful time, as it were. But Chris Farley's your best man. But yeah, I remember the excitement of Chris getting to Second City and how cool that was. And that's when I kind of figured, here it goes. And I was working in New York when Chris called and said they want me to, Lorne Michaels came in and wants to bring me out to New York. And I thought, all right, well, Lorne probably does that with a number of people, but at least Chris is coming out to New York and we'll have some fun. And so we did. He came out. We had a great weekend. And then Chris called up and said, they want me to come to see the show tonight. Do you want to come? So, here we are, Chris and I, at Saturday Night Live, and we're like, this is incredible. We were just high-fiving each other. We were just like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And, just watching people dealing with Chris and how they were treating him, I just said, oh, my God, he's going to get this. And it's like I just kind of saw him up there, and he was so, reverent to the whole thing. He was just so, thank you for the opportunity, and he was just, everyone just loved him from the start. And as I said, I just took one look around at the situation, and I said, he's going to get this.
How great too that you got to be there and experience that firsthand with him. First of all, I'm sure for him it was exciting to have his big brother there and sharing that. But it's also cool that you got to be there right at the time that all that started for him. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, you say too in the book, I think that, or some of his friends say, I mean, they all seem to know that he was destined to be on that show. They just felt it for some time.
Yeah, I was amazed to see that. There was a really tight-knit group, and what was really nice is that Chris kept them close. They were his safety net, throughout his entire life, and they knew Chris, certainly in a much different way. As I said, I was jaded in my view of Chris because just being the older brother, and he was just doing stuff that I just like. I can't believe this guy is totally unemployable. Is all. So
I understand that. I've got a younger brother, and I see him that way too.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's just kind of the thing, and it takes other people to see things differently, and so. It was great being out there with Chris at that time.
I'm going to give our number. A lot of times people just enjoy listening to someone like yourself. So, but if you want to call in, it is 646-595-3135. Do you remember the first time, along that same line, do you remember the first time you turned on the television, wherever you were? Maybe you were still in New York at the time, and there's your brother on TV?
Oh, yeah. The first show, we all came out the rest of the family came out to New York, and Dad was big. He was very overweight, and so he wasn't going to go to the show. So we said, all right, let's go to the dress rehearsal. And so we went to the 8 to 10 o'clock, whatever it was, dress rehearsal. And which I always thought, I ended up doing that a lot because I thought it was a lot more fun. And so we all went to my mom, sister, my brothers. We went to the dress rehearsal, and then we went right back to the hotel where Dad was, and turned on the TV, and then we watched the live show with Dad in the hotel room, and. It was really good. So I had both experiences. I saw this live, kind of run through show with this whole audience there, and then watched Chris. So I saw him, perform as an actor, and then I went home and watched him on national TV. It was like, and with the family, it was just really, it was really special. It was really cool. And just looking over and seeing Dad's face, just how proud he was, and and it was neat, and somebody asked me once, was there any sort of, kind of envy or jealousy? And, gosh, when you look at your father's face and see him looking at your kid brother like that, it's like, no way, man, this was just a real special time for us.
Was there any jealousy among the other siblings with regard to Chris?
No, there's some. Chris was, as you see in the book, Chris just won you over. I mean, he just connected. He had such a great way about him that, and he had the same thing with us. We all, had our moments and had our disagreements. But it all came back to this, special bond, this kind of brotherly thing that we all had. And no, I mean, even when they all followed him into the business. The other two, Johnny and Kevin, and Chris really made him work hard. He wasn't going to let him grab any coattails. It was pretty amazing to see Chris, yelling at my brothers to, not to, take it seriously. It's like, what do you, this isn't some hobby. These people work hard. You got to do the same thing. And I'm watching him, talk to his younger brothers like that. It's like, geez, I don't think I ever did that with Chris. I mean, it's, it was weird. I ended up looking up to him a lot of times.
What are John and Kevin doing now?
Johnny and Kevin are, they're half their career is begging Sandler and Spade to put them in movies. And no, I'm kidding. They'll kill me if they hear me say
Oh, my God.
but they do go in all those. They are good friends. God, Johnny and Kevin are probably better friends with Dave Spade than Chris was. I mean, they're really close. And so they do a lot of those movies. And Sandler's just such a great guy and does think they're really funny. So they're in a lot of those movies, doing a lot of commercials. Kevin had a lot of Hertz commercials and Kevin looks, really close to Chris. And you get on these on the internet, on the blogs and stuff, and you see on these message boards like, there's some guy that looks just like Chris Farley in this Hertz commercial. It's like, yeah, it's Kevin. And Kevin just finished a movie with one of the Zucker brothers that he plays Michael Moore, and it's kind of a spoof on Michael Moore's career, which should be pretty funny coming out later this year, I think.
Okay. And did you notice? I mean, how do I ask this? When did the family start to notice something was different with Chris? Was it it apparent? Could you see it either in person, on TV? Did you hear about it from family or friends?
Yeah.
When did the change happen?
Well, I think my mother really kind of noticed it. That in the family, she kind of like, this is not good for me. This kind of this just drinking, for whatever occasion, whatever it was. She got sober. Probably she was the first, and kind of saw Chris as kind of being the next problem in line, and so she really was the first one to really, try and get Chris to slow down at that point. Just slow down, just take it easy and watch it, and maybe get some counseling. And the rest of us were kind of doing the same old thing. Over the years, one by one, we all kind of addressed it by ourselves and for ourselves. So Mom noticed it, but we didn't notice. I didn't notice it until I really kind of, out in New York when it got bad, I would notice the people around Chris. Chris was always a guy that loved to make you laugh, but more than that, he'd love you to try and make him laugh, and he just loved that this kind of bond that humor brought to a group of people. And when I noticed people around Chris start cringing or walking away or shaking their heads, and Chris not noticing that, and continuing kind of to do these things that weren't really, funny, that's when I knew that's not what Chris wanted. He wasn't good at it. He was so good at the humor stuff, and this wasn't, so that's when I said, something's wrong here. I mean, I used to describe Chris as we were a big funny family, all of us, collectively, just no one funnier than the next, with the exception of Chris would take it to a higher level. So he would just kind of take it, up a notch. And in these situations when the drinking started to get out of control, it turned from taking it up a notch to going a step too far into inappropriateness. And there's a noticeable difference between the two. Chris, all of a sudden, and that's what drinking did. It translated from being incredibly talented at humor to this guy's being now he's just being inappropriate. And for him not to notice that was certainly an indication that something was out of control.
How would family feel about some of the sketches that he would do, like the Chippendale sketch is very famous, but it also kind of points out physically that he was not a healthy man. I mean, he was so overweight and
first of all, you can't. It's very difficult to define Chris Farley in your terms, because he made choices and made decisions and in terms of his weight and things like that. I mean, on the playground when we were kids, you had to be real quick to call him fatty before he did. I mean, he got that out of the way and almost challenged you to come up with something better. I was like, all right, fatty. I called myself fatty. What are you going to do now? Now what are you going to call me? And he would keep going, and this nemesis or this adversary that was about to call him, fatty, now he's got him laughing. Mm-hmm. He won him over. He disarmed him with that, and then he won him with his humor. And I would see that happen so many times. So he was very used to that, doing that, using that as a protective and measure. And so the Chippendales thing, we saw that. I saw that on so many playgrounds, on so many living rooms and dance floors. I mean, the place would clear out, and there'd be Chris, with his shirt off, doing the same dance, same thing, all his life.
Okay. Well, that puts it in perspective.
Yeah. I mean, that's an act I saw many times. So how can you define him in your terms? I mean, he just, that's kind of, he accepted that.
Could you tell when he was sober and when he wasn't?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And again, it took like this stretch of like 3, when he put together, all of a sudden it was a year, 2 years, 3 years of sobriety when he was on SNL. And I was out there to see this. I was amazed because, in the book, it talks about his college living, his style, his room. It was a mess. At Second City, Joel Murray, Bill Murray's younger brother, was on Second City with him and lived down the hall in an apartment. He used to, in the book, he jokes about the mice, coming through Joel's apartment and just kind of looking at him with this look like, it's okay, we're just going over to Farley's.
Right.
So, and all of a sudden, here's Chris, looking, first healthy. He was somewhere around maybe 250 pounds, 225. I mean, he was good. I mean, he was good. Weight wise, he had good, intelligent conversations. He was neat. He dressed well. You got to thank Chris Rock for that. Chris took him down to a couple of stores in New York and said, "All right, this is it. You're in New York now, pal. This is my territory. I'm going to show you how to dress." And so that was always, we always thank Rock for that. But he just looked sharp, and he was fun to be around, and you trusted him because you knew that moment when he was capable of being inappropriate wasn't going to happen, and that made it really enjoyable. Because if you knew Chris for a long time, you knew that there was always that danger, and it was scary.
Well, there's times in the book as we get later on in the book where even his closest friends reached points where they had to turn their back or they had to move away. Spade, Tim Meadows, who until I read the excerpt last month in Playboy and then the book now, I hadn't really made the connection between Meadows and Chris all the way back to Second City, but he was especially fed up, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, because he saw the beginnings of it, and then he saw Chris get well again, and saw going back to that. But and I told all these guys, even when we were doing the book, I said, we went through the same thing. Anyone that's touched by addiction knows this intimately well. You go through this feeling and emotion of love and sadness and then on into even anger, and then you cycle back through again. It's draining, and you've got to have those moments where you just say, I got to get out of here. It wasn't just the family; it was friends, and it was everybody. So it's tough on us, and it's got to be tough for the person that's addicted as well. I mean, to have people so close to you, and you're constantly saying, "Don't give up on me, don't give up on me," and every once in a while somebody does, and it's like, and it's because of your addiction, and it's got to be, it's probably, I'm sure, very painful for Chris at those moments, as it was for all of us.
Did his family members, did Spade, Meadows, people like that, in researching the book, and as you talked to some, as Tanner talked to other people, was there a sense that anyone felt any guilt when they reached the point where they had to turn away from him and they couldn't deal with his problems anymore? Do they feel guilty now, even this
I think looking back, it's easier to have that guilt. I think at the time, that's a different emotion. I mean, when you're in that time of anger and I'm out of here, that's the emotion that you feel. Later on you might feel guilty about it, and certainly after Chris died, we all felt, gosh, if what could I have done? Didn't I do everything? There was everyone had that feeling as well. But at the time, no, you just you're forced, by the person that's addicted. You're forced through all of these emotional stages, and you kind of have to make.
Yeah, you kind of have to make a selfish decision. I think I hadn't even thought about this up until just now. I was remembering many years ago having a friend who had always been a drinker, but had become an incredibly heavy drinker, and his girlfriend couldn't reach him at his house. We're talking about somebody in his 40s. Now, we're not talking about a kid. And called me and said, "Can you come here and help me? We need to get into the house. I don't know if he's even alive in there." And we went in, and we got in, and the guy's got quart bottles of, Jack Daniels and all kinds of stuff, just in a ring around his rocking chair, and he's just passed out. And we'd been through some lesser scenes with him, and I remember we got him and we packed him into the car and we took him to an inpatient hospital type of thing where he could dry out. And I just said to her, "You know what? I just can't do this anymore. We've helped him where we could, and I feel a little guilt here, but I'm just not emotionally and mentally equipped to keep doing this over and over again."
It's not so much knowing that it's going to happen over and over again, but it's also like you're coming dangerously close to that point of no return with this person, and you don't want to be there.
Right.
It's almost like, it's like, it's like, oh my God, the next step, it's not going to be, it's not going to be the fast-moving ambulance. It's going to be the slow one that it just has the lights on, and when you see that coming real close, that's when you're like, I got to get out of here, because no one wants to go through that with somebody. As much as you love the person, that's kind of a very human emotion to have, is protect your own emotions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people go through. But then they survive, and you're right back at it again.
Mm-hmm. I think I wrote myself a note that one of the saddest parts of the book is actually the very first chapter, where we read the transcript of the speech that Chris gave at the Hazelden Rehab Center. Because you read it, and he's so full of life and truth about himself and honesty. Yeah. And then if you've gotten to this book and you don't already know how the story ends, you want to root for him. But because you do know how it ends, it's really a tearjerker of an opening.
Brutal, and those are his own words. I mean, when we found that tape, I think Tanner and I were both blown away. You were talking about what was Chris like when he was sober. I mean, that was him. He was just so insightful and humble, really, and that's what you need to be in that to be successful in recovery. And it just shows you how just how devastating and how hard this is. I mean, it's incredible to me that there still is that stigma out there for people that are addicted, that they brought it upon themselves, and I don't feel sorry for them. It's like, man, you read that, and here's a guy that just tried so hard, and still it overcame him, and it's hard to see that stigma still out there when you read something like that.
Tom, did you or any members of the family blame anyone but Chris for what happened to him?
No, and we really didn't even blame Chris. It's there's so many factors that go into it, and you don't know. It's a combination. I mean, it's Chris's. It was Chris's chemical makeup. I mean, all four boys, went through the same environments growing up. Mm-hmm. It's like our own family, a college town of Madison, Wisconsin, Wisconsin itself being a very heavy drinking culture, and so and yet actually five of us. My sister went through it too. She's almost close to a teetotaler as Farley's get. She has a glass of wine. That's about it. And the four boys, Kevin and Johnny haven't had they stopped drinking 10 years ago, but they went through AA to do that. I just stopped. I didn't, I just, and I had some, that wasn't, it was, it was hard. I made some, took a step or two back at times, but basically stopped on my own. And then Chris that tried everything and couldn't get through it. So it's tough to blame, anybody. I will say that, the industry, not individuals, but, the lifestyle that Chris ended up in is, very difficult. I mean, as I said before, you have to be very humble to be in recovery. And there was a couple of times when Chris was like, being let out of rehab to go to the present at the Academy Awards. There was another time where they let him out to go buy a Viper. How humble are you to buy a $70,000 car? It's stuff like that. There were times when he was in a detox or a couple of weeks in Chicago, where a worker in the recovery unit brought him drugs because he was a celebrity. And so there were so many factors that, Chris really needed to go away for a year or two and get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, why didn't he? Who's to blame for that? Is it, the industry? Is it the people that demanded Chris to be out there? Is it the family? Is it Chris himself? I don't know. It's just all we can do is, learn. That's all I can say is, but you really can't point fingers.
Tom, was there anyone who was interviewed for the book, and there were a lot of interviews for the book, that helped you or other family members put Chris in perspective by something that they said, or maybe a story that they recalled? Anything that kind of helped you through this?
Yeah, his good friend Matt Foley, father Matt Foley, who was a classmate, played rugby with Chris at Marquette University, and went on to join the priesthood, and then Chris, stole his name for his great motivational character. Matt just, I had dinner with him last week. Just shakes his head at that one. But Matt described Chris's humor, and he saw his talent at bringing laughter as almost a ministry of his own. He just saw he saw it as a ministry. He saw it as God gave him this talent, and it was up to him to use that to make people feel better. And my dad really drilled into us, two things. And one was that he made sure that we believed that nobody was better than you were. Everyone's kind of on equal. You don't ever think of yourself as being better than anyone else. And the other thing was that if you do have opportunity given to you in life, that it's required of you to give something back in return. And Chris really believed heartily in both of those. And so he thought that there was good in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And and that was his ministry. And I thought it was wonderful that Matt made it that way. But I used to tell Chris the same token. It's like, but as far as everyone is not good. There are people out there that don't have your best interests in mind. They don't really care about you, and you want to make people laugh, and people like that. But you also like to laugh too. And if you're not getting that in return, that's probably not a group you need to be. You should be in. And you really need to. You don't like. Chris didn't like to judge people, but I said to protect yourself, you need to. And because you're gonna end up, I just say you're gonna end up like Belushi, dying surrounded by people that just are not your friends. And unfortunately, that's exactly what did happen. I mean, you go back. Well, again, if I could point the finger at anybody, it's those, it's people like that he spent his last few days with that, just kind of didn't care about Chris. I mean, he was in horrible shape, and they're parading him around, keeping him up, and going to parties, and I don't know, it was just a really sad way to go.
Well, let's we've got a couple minutes left. Let's try to end on an upbeat note. You are I think the chairman and the managing director of the Chris Farley Foundation.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about why the foundation was started and kind of what its mission and goals are?
Well, yeah. I mean, right after I was living in Connecticut, right when Chris died, and I needed to kind of felt it was my duty to kind of help people understand some of the decisions that Chris made and his struggles, and really it was mostly to deal with my own grief. I just needed to talk about it. And so I would go out to high schools, and I would go into like health classes and to talk about substance abuse, and I would see a whole classroom full of all different arrays of people, some quiet, some fooling around, some, ready to take down every note. And I was introduced, this is Tom Farley, brother Chris Farley, head of the Chris Farley Foundation, and I'd see everyone stop and lean forward as if to listen. And I'm a marketing guy by profession, and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, there's like some real brand power here. I mean, to get teenagers to all 100% listen, have their attention and talking about this heady subject. So I didn't take that lightly. I looked at, Chris as a model, and I thought, well, gosh, Chris was so good at using his humor, his talented humor, to connect with people. I really never saw him as so much as an actor as I did as a communicator. I mean, he was a master at that, and so I looked at how he did that, and I know when he found improv, the art of improv, which was a communication tool, that's when he really started to shine and hone that talent. And so I said, all right, well, why don't I use improv, this which is done in a group, in an ensemble, and kids do everything in a group. They're all, pack oriented, and it's fun. It's humor. These are kids that are taught prevention like it's math class. Or they're told to do this, don't do that, and you're bad if you do this, and no, it's tough to swallow that as a teenager. And so I said, let's use humor. We got their attention. Let's keep it by doing, positive stuff, but talk about serious issues. But not make fun of it, but just let's have fun doing it and just learn to communicate better, and learn how to get along in a group and what I call peer-enhanced environments rather than existing in these peer-pressured environments. And it's just taken off. I mean, it's been great. Kids love it. They really respond.
And is this a full-time gig for you?
No, I'm actually a marketing consultant here in Wisconsin and Madison. I'm just I've done a lot of marketing things throughout my career, and I kind of that's kind of when I built the foundation. I built it with my skill set. I'm a marketing and communications guy, so I said I'm not going to be an educator, a prevention expert, or I'm not going to do all that. I know how to communicate, and so I'll build the foundation. Not even by programs, but by building the brand first and then building the programs. And when I did that is when I first learned that, I'm actually pretty good at this. So I've branched out and done some consulting work, just started to do some consulting for marketing for organizations. And but in between I wrote a book. And so I kind of connect all those things, and it's really about whether I'm talking about prevention, whether I'm talking about business or the book. It's all about communication, and it's all about how you utilize this. Because as I said before, we grew up in this family that didn't communicate well, and I guess maybe that's how I learned to get really good at it ourselves, and Chris did too. Okay. And so I'm just kind of utilizing that knowledge and having fun with it.
All right. Well, Tom, the hour went by very fast, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today on Mr. Media. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I do. Absolutely. Good questions. I hear what you're saying about people not calling in because they just want to listen. I get like that when I talk. I go, any questions? And no hands go up. No, just keep talking. You're doing fine.
Yeah, that's really it. That's really it. And I'm sure the good thing is that people can download this from now till eternity.
Great.
So I know we'll have a lot of people listening and commenting. And really, I just want to say thanks, and I appreciate your time. I think you and your co-author, Tanner Colby, did a real good job.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks for calling in.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. You can find Tom Farley's book, The Chris Farley Show. It's available for sale on the Mr. Media site or on Amazon.com. And if you'd like to learn more about the Chris Farley Foundation, which Tom Farley Jr. runs, go to www.chrisfarleyfoundation.com. That's chrisfarleyfoundation.com. And for dozens more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. where you can listen to my earlier conversations with the stars and creators of Army Wives, 24, The Big Bang Theory, Pearls Before Swine, Tell Me You Love Me, and many others. You can also read full transcriptions there. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, Blueberry, Zencast, or iTunes. Folks, thanks so much for joining us today. I really, really do appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Look forward to talking to you again very soon.